Hey everyone, this is the Love of Cinema podcast. We like to talk movies. If you like to talk movies too, you come to the right place.
The theme that simultaneously, while creating these classics, he was also trying to end his life. And while watching Pyasa, you will not realize that he's going through any kind of mental health issue. And there was
Yeah.
not a bound script. I've been told by many people he was not working with bound scripts. A lot of it was written on sets. A lot of it which was
And
actually the norm.
Abrar Alvi's book also says na कि sometimes he'll shoot a scene and he
हाँ,
won't like it.
we won't
I
like it and
think
we'll scrap
प्यासा
it.
के कागज के फूल के लिए there is this quote in Nasir Muni Kabir's documentary where someone is saying कि जितनी फिल्म बनी है उससे ज्यादा फिल्म तो शूट होके रखी.
When we think of Hindi cinema within the context of world cinema, the oldest and the most striking difference between our cinema and the cinema made outside India that comes to mind is the presence of songs in our films. Songs have always been a mainstay of popular Hindi cinema, and often one of its enduring charms, especially when we talk about films of a certain vintage. One of the early filmmakers who infused song visualization with a signature aesthetic and brought a poetic vision to storytelling was Guru Dutt. This is Himanshu, and you're listening to the Love of Cinema podcast. But before moving on, an important reminder. If you enjoy organic conversations centered on Indian cinema, Love of Cinema podcast was created for people just like you. So if you enjoy the podcast, please do consider supporting the show. Love of Cinema podcast is my labor of love. And with every episode, I've attempted to create something that cinephiles will continue to find value, not just today, but over time as well. If you find value in the conversations on the pod, please do consider supporting the show. Your support will help me continue creating content with shelf life for fans of Indian cinema everywhere. You'll find the link to support the show in the show notes. You can also support the show directly from the podcast website. It's fast, it's easy, and your support is greatly appreciated. Coming back to today's episode, Guru Dutt was a genius, and like any other genius, he had his flaws. He was a troubled man, troubles which unfortunately, ultimately, made him take his own life. But he left behind a legacy of films and songs, not just widely adored in India and all over the world, but also studied across the world in film schools and by cinephiles of all stripes. As we mark the legendary filmmaker's centenary, I wanted to do an episode where we talked about not only his cinema and his legacy, but also the man himself, because much of Guru Dutt's body of work is personal and semi-autobiographical. So to really understand his cinema, we need to make an effort to understand the man behind it. Both guests on today's episode are someone who have been professionally inspired by Guru Dutt's work and are endlessly fascinated by him. Yasser Usman is a leading film biographer and the writer of Guru Dutt, An Unfinished Story, the popular biography chronicling the life and career of Guru Dutt. I've included the Amazon link to his book in the show notes, and I highly recommend checking it out in case you haven't read it. Alok Sharma is a screenwriter with a keen interest in Guru Dutt and his times, and is in the process of developing a project that's set during that period of time. The three of us had a freewheeling conversation around Guru Dutt's films, his song visualization technique, his range, the personal and the mental health issues he was battling, and the numerous Guru Dutt stories as told by his peers and collaborators over the years. Guru Dutt, the man, his cinema, his legacy, with Yasser Usman and Alok Sharma. Here goes. Hey guys, how are you guys doing?
Very
Hey,
good.
hi
Very good.
Himanshu. Hi Yasser bhai.
Hi,
So good
hi,
to be here.
Alok. Hi, Himanshu. So lovely being here on your podcast again, Himanshu. And I remember it was a few years ago when we talked about this long conversation about something in Bollywood.
About your
we,
books, yes.
we talked about a whole range of subject uh, from film stars to
Right.
filmmakers, and like you're back today. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you guys for coming on this podcast to talk about Guru Dutt. And, as you know, his centenary is coming up, his birth centenary. And so I was thinking, we should do something about Guru Dutt that, is such a tall figure of our cinema that all of us love so much in the cinema. And so I thought, okay, maybe let me get the person who has written a book on he might know a thing or two about Guru Dutt. And then this person who always has, great stories about pretty much any film personality. So I thought, okay, maybe if we have a chat, then there will be something for the listeners to hook on to. So let's talk Guru Dutt, guys. So I just wanted to make a small note before we get going that, you will find interviews of V. Shantaram, Raj Kapoor, Ray, Devanand, Vijayanand, but not a single interview of Guru Dutt anywhere. And part of the reason is that, he died very young and very early on in 1964. And most of the interviews and interactions with Indian film personalities that can be found today are from a period that's little later than that. I think, you will start finding like at least video interviews or something from 70s onwards. But somewhere Guru Dutt's films have always served as an important lens to the man himself. The man's legacy, his films live on, all over the world. He's widely adored today, all over the world again. And he truly was one of the early directors to bring a certain poetic vision to the Hindi cinema, if you will. So I wanted to start by asking you both about your first brush with Guru Dutt films. What do you remember? What struck you when you first witnessed his work?
Himanshu, it's a very important point that you made about not having a single interview. I'll come to that point, and I think I have written about it also. But first, my first brush with Guru Dutt, which was during my childhood, Doordarshan, where I had watched Pyasa and Kagas Ke Phool. Kagas Ke Phool was boring. Like this is a 12-year-old Yasser telling you that it's quite boring. It's pretty boring, except the song "Waqt Ne Kiya," which was a regular staple at Chitrahars on Wednesdays and Fridays on Doordarshan. But Pyasa, even as a kid, I had loved because it was so entertaining, and I will keep on using this word as long as I keep talking about Guru Dutt because later it was in 2001 or 2. I just started working in Delhi as a media person, and I used to live in this place called Lodhi Colony, which is like 200. My house was my Barsati was 200 meters from India Habitat Center, which used to have a vibrant film club called Habitat Film Club. And I must have been, I was like 23 or 24, and they had this Guru Dutt retrospective, and they had this huge auditorium called Stain Auditorium, where you know, uh, they were having this retrospective, and all Guru Dutt films were screened on big screen. Now, this was an experience. I had a little more understanding of cinema than I had as a 12-year-old. Uh, but at the same time, when I watched Pyasa again, it didn't feel dated at all. It is a black and white film. It didn't feel dated at all, and it was still entertaining. It flows like a breeze. Even now, if you watch Pyasa, it flows like a breeze, and it makes a comment, a strong comment. It is artistic. It is very well shot. It has Johnny Walker. It has Champi Tel Malish. It has all those great songs. It has its own funny moments. It's a complete Bollywood film, but a poetic and very strongly made Bollywood film. That was the first thing that struck. Then the second film was Sahib Biwi aur Ghulam, and I think the last was Kagas Ki Phool. And this time, I loved the imagery of Kagas Ki Phool. I still remember that it was really patchy. There were like few sequences that stood out, but end of the weekend, after completed after watching the film, all the Guru Dutt films on big screen, I thought I should read more about this person, and that's how the journey began. I started reading. uh, there were many books. And this was pre-Google. I am talking. There were many books in library. There were. I used to go to Bombay, and I tried to look. I had access to Times of India through my uh, organization. I went there, and I realized that there is hardly anything from Guru Dutt. His perspective was completely missing. And number two was that he passed away at 39, and there was some passing mention in one of the books that he tried to end his life when he was making Pyasa. So this was really intriguing. That when you are making your dream project and you have worked so hard of it, you have gone through such hard struggle that he went through, uh, and then when you are finally you know close to fulfilling that dream, then if Pyasa was nearing completion, the news came that he has uh, uh, attempted suicide. So this is how, and I realized, okay, I at some stage and I was not an author by then, and I realized, okay, I would love to write about it. I pitched it to a few newspapers, I remember, and they said me, "What have you done?" I said, "I want to do." So you haven't researched about Guru Dutt, and they were like senior writers who had done work about it. So and then cut to 2014, I did my first book and then second book. After every book, I tried to convince my publisher that I want to write on Guru Dutt. They said, "नहीं sir, Guru Dutt बहुत हो गया है." So everyone has this, even in the film industry. Alok will tell us that even in the film industry, producers and direction, यार कुछ और करो. Let's not discuss Guru Dutt. And I was one of those कि नहीं, I really want. Now I am doing my research. It's been going on since a few years, and finally after three books, there's my editor called Shantan Ghosh, and we were having this dinner at my place, and I we were having this कि देखो यार कोई लिखने नहीं दे रहा. He said, नहीं, this sounds so good, let's do this. And I said, कोई बात नहीं बेटा, तुम कल घर जाओगे और सब भूल जाओगे, रात गई बात गई. But I think 2 days or 3 days later, I got a text saying, are you ready to work on this book? And then it became a journey. Then COVID struck, lockdown, talking to his sister, convincing her, and conversations with his sister, which really made the book special because it added that personal angle to it. So this is how the book came into being, and this was my journey with him. And I would like to know Alok's perspective about Guru Dutt, and mine was a very regular. I'm not a scholar. I do not write academic books, so-called academic books. I don't know what's the difference between the two, because I think the process of research is the same. But a lot of people, some serious-minded people, have told me कि नहीं, academic अलग होता है and this is different. So I don't know. I'm still grappling with to understand both the versions. But mine was coming from a very different perspective, and I still uh, can debate on this, that Guru Dutt was an extremely commercial filmmaker, a mainstream filmmaker, and mainstream success mattered to him a lot, a lot. There is just one flop film he made, just one, and he made a comeback. I think we'll talk about it later. Just 8 months later, he gave his biggest blockbuster. Just one flop film, it broke his heart. That is how much it mattered to him. That is how much it mattered to Raj Kapoor also. Post मेरा नाम लेकर. So just big कि जो कमर्शियल हो सकता है वो इंटेलिजेंट या आर्टिस्टिक फिल्म मेकर नहीं हो सकता, which is an accepted norm in our society, कि नहीं वो तो कमर्शियल फिल्में बनाता है, उसको छोड़ दो. ये इंटेलेक्चुअल था, ये अलग है. So I think let's get the facts right, and I think it is a fact that he was an extremely great mainstream filmmaker, and
Absolutely.
that is the point of view I had taken in the book also.
Absolutely.
I
And
know.
highly successful one at that.
Yeah, highly successful. Highly successful.
Actually, Raj Kapoor had tasted failure with his first film
Yeah,
itself,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Aag. So yeah, for Raj Kapoor to reach there and get that Mera Naam Joker thing bombing would have been a different kind of
Yeah,
blow
yeah.
as compared to Guru Dutt's, the film that bombed. Also, my first experience with Guru Dutt, right? So this was exactly the same thing. I think I was 8 or 9 years old. There was this Doordarshan thing going on, Guru Dutt film festival kind of a thing. रात में गुरु दत्त की फिल्में दिखाते थे दूरदर्शन में. And my mother used to love these films, and she would constantly tell me कि तुमको मजा नहीं आएगा, तुम मत देखो. I was like a big Bachchan fan. So anyway, these films won't make much sense to me. One fine day, I really, zid with karke, I started watching this film with her, and it was Sahib Bibi aur Gulam. That was my first Guru Dutt film. It opens with that, skeleton cut discovery and all those things. And for a moment, it was horror for me. Then I felt it might be something like an Indiana Jones thing where, he's going to uncover some mystery. Because that is the kind of films I was watching and I was loving, right? But nothing of that sort was happening in that film. I got bored and I slept within like first 30 minutes or so. And I felt, Guru Dutt is not meant for me. And that stayed with me till I was like in my late 20s, I guess. And like Yasser was saying, ki there are way too many books on Guru Dutt. People were saying, I this morning I was speaking to my wife and I told her कि there are way too many books on him. गुरु दत्त और आर डी बर्मन पे जितनी बुक्स है मेरे ख्याल से बाकी किसी पे इतनी बुक्स
किसी
नहीं है.
पे
लाइक
नहीं,
आई
किसी
एम
पे नहीं.
स्टिल वेटिंग फॉर अ गुड बुक ऑन शंकर जयकिशन,
Yeah,
a
there's
good
no
book
book. Yeah,
on
you're right.
Kalyan Jananji. Yeah, these are like my two of my most favorite music director duos, and there is no good book on either Shankar Jayakishan or Kalyan Jananji. And Guru Dutt, you have immense amount of like literature.
Amazing.
Actually, Yasser Bhai's book is there. Then you have Nasir Muni Kabir's book.
Ye-
Then you have Abrar Alvi wala ek book hai, A Decade with Guru Dutt. Then there's Bimal Mitra ka book hai, Bichhade Sabhi
हाँ,
Bari
हाँ,
Bari.
हाँ, हाँ.
So there
आज
are
सुबह
way too
अच्छा
many
just
books.
just just to tell you आज सुबह because this is his centenary next week, so I was writing a piece for some magazine and I discovered
Outlook. Yeah.
someone messaged me नहीं Outlook के अलावा भी अभी 4-5 हैं which will
अच्छा.
get published because everyone asked
Okay.
me. I said हाँ चलो let's brush up the Guru Dutt thing.
Hmm.
So there is a Tamil book, so he was working on this film called Suhagan.
Yeah, in Madras.
इन मद्रास. सो मद्रास में जिस राइटर्स के साथ काम कर रहे थे स्टूडियो के साथ, सो ही हैज रिटन हिज मेमोइर्स इन तमिल. सो ही हैज
Okay.
रिटन अबाउट गुरु दत्त एंड व्हिच आई
Yeah.
हैड नो क्लू व्हाइल आई वाज राइटिंग माय बुक.
Even Bimal Mitra writes about this Suhagan and
Oh,
his,
हाँ.
and Bimal
And those
Mitra sketches a very different picture of Guru Dutt actually. And then you
actually,
have
and
one
I think
fictionalized
I,
version of Guru Dutt, that is Ajeeb Aadmi
हाँ हाँ इसमें
by
चुगता है.
Ismat Chugtai. Yeah.
हाँ हाँ. And it's a completely different version. It comes from, I think, some form of bitterness.
Yeah,
It
her
was
husband used to assist Guru Dutt. Yeah.
हाँ
So
हाँ नहीं he didn't, he never used to assist. I think Guru Dutt had given him a movie to
Bahare Fir
direct.
Bhi Aayenge or something.
बाहर फिर भी आएंगे, and I think at some
हाँ.
stage Guru Dutt had insulted the husband.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is the reason, but that book comes from a very bitter perspective. That's what I felt after reading. That is not most of it
That book is
is
like a novel of blind items
novel of blind items. Yeah. Had it
because
not
she
been
changes.
Ismat Chogtai, वो उसको
Hmm.
बोला जाता था this is the biggest piece of gossip you have read, just because her
But
name is.
it's a pretty good book. If
No, it's a
anyone
pretty
wants
good book.
to know about 1950s
Yeah.
Hindi cinema, that book is
हाँ.
like really good one.
It's
Yeah.
the psychological sketch of Bollywood of 1950s,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. She
Is
did
there
like a
a
couple of
English
such
version
books.
of that book?
Yeah. So
Okay.
there's a very good translation.
Okay.
in English.
I think we digressed a bit. Alok was talking
Yeah.
about that there are so many books in late
Yeah,
20s.
and you're telling us about the Tamil book. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there were way too many books, and I started reading those books. They were all, all the books were painting a very different kind of Guru Dutt for me. Most of the books were, dealing with the entire, marital problems he was going through and all those things. But I was recently reading Bimal Mitra's book very recently, and I felt it's a picture of a very depressed person, clinically depressed person. It has got nothing to do with his, family life or the movies not making money or movies making money. it was a person who would get bored very easily and was dealing with severe depression, because when Vimal Mitra writes about him and his loneliness and how he would try to deal with it, he would party with a lot of people and then again go back into his cocoon and all those things. They are like atypical, quintessential, signs of
Telltale
depression.
signs of, yeah.
Yeah. So so that's what I felt, and I was like, nobody tried to get into this space, the mental health issues of a genius who wants to tell a new story almost every day he gets up. He's constantly reading, so he's constantly finding so many stories, and mind is working in a different pace as compared to the pace that his work is happening. So it's like a constant catch up and push and pull that he's going through. He destroys his bungalow, starts staying in an apartment. All these things are like a telltale story of someone who's severely depressed, who's trying to change the location. Maybe location change करने से शायद कुछ हो जाए.
Right.
Who's trying to change the circle of people he's working with. शायद इससे कुछ बदल जाए मेरी life में. He's constantly looking for something that will kind of save him. That's what I felt after reading Bimal Mitra's book. Even though Bimal Mitra never talks about this thing, the mental health issues, but when you are reading it, because this is something that is so prevalent in our industry right now, I can see like a blueprint of how this thing destroys a person.
I was fascinated exactly by the same point. When I started talking to Guru Dutt's sister, Lalita Lajmi, the late Lalita Lajmi, and within three conversations with her, and I asked her point blank, I said, "Did you ever feel that he was depressed?" She said, "Yes, we knew it after his second suicide uh,
Attempt.
attempt, and there were three. Officially, they are described as two, but there were three.
Yeah.
So the first time was before Pyasa, the, like a few years before Pyasa. The second was Pyasa, and the third was post Sahib Bibi or Ghulam, the last one.
Yeah.
A year after Sahib Bibi or Ghulam. So my point was that someone who is simultaneously creating these masterpieces, who is like completely brilliant mind, imaginative, who's constantly reading. He was in the habit of reading books, and he's reading constantly, but he's also trying to run away.
Yeah.
He's suffering from sleeplessness, because Bimal Mitra's book is known as Binitro, which means sleepless. So when he's sleepless, he started consuming those tablets, which were
Sleeping pills and all.
fats,
Yeah.
these sleeping pills, Sonaril and all, mixing it with whiskey. Then there is the entire track of his personal life, which is in great turmoil. His relationship with Geeta Dutt, and their entire equation that he didn't want Geeta to sing in any film
Films.
outside his banner, which is like his sister clearly said on record in the book that he was so controlling that he did not want to Geeta to sing outside. And then Geeta was of the opinion that I sang in your initial films. You became a star because my songs did so greatly.
So
in
well,
film. And
yeah.
now, so well, and now you do not want me to sing outside. And he said, "Kini, I want you to become famous, but sing in my films. See, you're famous." And then it kind of ruined Geeta Dutt also career-wise. She was a top singer
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
meeting Guru Dutt. She was among at least number one or number two. But then Mangeshkar sisters took over, and she was bitter about it. Those entire thing, and these regular suicide attempts trying to
Yeah.
end his life, this was a telltale sign. And then finally they got to a point where the doctor told him, the Bombay doctor said, "Nee, he needs a psychiatrist." So they called a psychiatrist, and
Okay.
the psychiatrist took it was a very expensive psychiatrist who took something. She quoted 500, which I think is a lot of money in 1962 or
And
63.
back then, yeah.
हाँ, बैक देन एंड देन दे सेड कि माय ब्रदर टोल्ड मी कि वो तो गुरु से बात करने के सिर्फ 2 घंटे बात की उसने और ₹500 ले गया। सो एंड देन दे सेड वी लाफ्ड अबाउट इट। यार बात करने के 500 दवाई भी नहीं देके गया एंड देन वी नेवर कॉल्ड हिम अगेन। And then while saying that, I remember, because we were having this talk post the lockdown thing, and I was sitting
Mm-hmm.
in our Andheri flat, and we had this long chat, and she had tears in her eyes. She says, "Ki I now blame myself that he was crying for help, that he was severely
Yeah.
depressed." And she said, "Ki I think it was beyond depression. It was not just depression, but it wasn't diagnosed ever." And since
No,
now you talk about
there were other issues also, like disassociation. I could sense from Vimal Mitra's book only,
Vimal Mitra,
where his son is in the hospital. A daughter is like hardly a year old,
yeah, yeah,
and he is in Chennai, and he doesn't go back
he doesn't
home,
go back.
even though there's a break in
Mm,
between.
mm.
He wants to party. He wants to stay here. He just wants to escape everything,
He
and
just want to
so there's a sense of disassociation there. I also feel the entire controlling over Geeta Dutt would have been germinated from one of those episodes.
I think so. I think
Something
so.
that was going on in his head. Yeah.
Right.
And also there's in that Vimal Mitra book, there's some conversations which really paint a different picture. For example, he's partying, the party you talked about, in somewhere in Madras, some in the interior,
Yeah, with Firoz
uh,
Khan and all the
with
team,
Feroz Khan and all,
near
and
Mahabalipuram.
near Mahabalipuram. And Vimal Mitra asks him, "Ki, okay, these friends of yours, these hangers on, are like making a fool out of you, and they are after your money." So he answers, it's a very, very fascinating answer he gives. He says कि बिमल बाबू, हमेशा फायदा ही जरूरी थोड़ी है लाइफ में, कुछ
Yeah.
नुकसान भी तो होना चाहिए। तो मुझे जहां से देखो पैसा आ रहा है, मैं क्या करूं इतने पैसे? So it's a weird answer, and there are many such conversations
And
that
then he had his tax
हाँ,
advisor also visiting him there after the fight.
regularly. Gola Saab, I
Yeah,
think his name is Gola
Gola
Saab.
Sahib or something. Yeah.
हाँ, so after his second suicide attempt, where he eats
Hmm.
38 sleeping pills.
Yeah.
So nobody asks him. The psychiatrist comes and goes, and they never call. The family never calls the psychiatrist again. And Vimal Mitra, when he visits Guru Dutt the next time, he asks के सुना आपने मरने की कोशिश की थी? So he said कि हाँ की तो थी. He said, क्या हुआ था उस दिन? Would you like to tell me about it? And Guru Dutt says कि normally मुझे लगता है कि पता नहीं मैंने क्यों किया. आज मुझे लगता है कि it was totally you know what was I
Yeah.
thinking? But in that moment, uh, I had no questions. I had no doubt that I wanted to do it. So I took that entire wrapper of that. It had 38 tablets, and
Yeah.
I
38 tablets.
consumed those 38 tablets. As simple as that. So definitely mental health issue to thai. And
Thai.
since you are part of the film industry, Alok, and like you said that, I think a lot of professionals go through it and are going through it post COVID. It is a major thing.
Yeah.
There's
So
there's an interesting
insecurity.
bit in the documentary Guru Dutt by Nasrin Muni Kabir,
Nasruni,
where
yeah.
Lalil Lajmi does say that, I wish that those were different times when you could talk about mental health freely,
Yeah.
because maybe, things would have been different for the man, but that was not the norm, and people did not open up. And on top of that, Guru Dutt happened to be somebody who was an introvert. And, he did not want to share, what's going on in his mind or anything like that. He would much rather just keep quiet about it.
Yeah.
So it's a
But
very
for a real long time. Yeah. Sorry.
bit from that documentary.
The theme that simultaneously, while creating these classics, he was also trying to end his life. And while watching Pyasa, you will not realize that he's going through any kind of mental health issue. And there was
Yeah.
not a bound script. I've been told by many people he was not working with bound scripts. A lot of it was written on sets. A lot of it, which was
And
actually the norm.
Abrar Alvi's book also says na, कि
हाँ,
sometimes he'll shoot a scene and he
हाँ,
won't like it.
you won't
I
like it, and
think
he'll scrap
प्यासा
it.
के कागज के फूल के लिए there's this quote in Nasir Muni Kabir's documentary where someone is saying कि जितनी फिल्म बनी है उससे ज्यादा फिल्म तो शूट होकर
हाँ,
रखी थी कैम ने.
Kafi Azmi
Kafi Azmi is saying
Kaifi
that.
Azmi
Yes,
said that.
Kafi
Kafi Azmi
Azmi
says
says that.
हाँ,
Yeah.
even for Pyasa, I think it's been said that उसमें 3 प्यासा बन जाती हैं जितना शूट हुआ है. So that indecision was, and that he was not sure about many things was there, and he never cared about money. That was
Yeah.
the brilliant filmmaker part. Even Devanand has said that on record. I was talking to Amit Khanna साहब, who worked closely with Devanand, and who said कि यार वो तो सबसे महंगे filmmaker थे. सबसे महंगे क्योंकि बोले रमेश सिप्पी भी महंगे हुए हैं और दो चार नाम उन्होंने लिए, दे हैव बीन, क्योंकि दे यूज्ड टू शूट अ लॉट. बट गुरुदत्त वाज एट सम अदर लेवल. ही सेड कि देव साहब तो ये कहते थे कि यार 3 फिल्में बन जाएंगी जितने में एक बनाते हैं. सो दैट वाज ऑलवेज देयर राइट फ्रॉम द बिगिनिंग.
He shot a film called Raz, where there
Yeah,
are more than 12 reels of that film.
and
And
they
then
left it
he
midway.
completely shelved it. Yeah, because it was based on Woman in
Yeah,
White, which is what
Yeah,
the
yeah. And
and
and, and, and
story
Sunil
is.
Dutt
later
was
on, later on, later
Sunil Dutt
on,
was hero.
हाँ,
Yeah.
yeah,
हाँ,
उस पे फिर वो कौन थी बनी थी ना,
Yeah,
वो
right,
कौन
वो
थी,
right.
कौन
Raj
या
Khosla made Wo Kaun Thi.
राजकोट
But
समेत वो कौन थी on the same script.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, that's while we are talking about the person itself, I'll just talk about his character and not character so much, but what kind of person he was. Like we already said, he definitely had issues. He was an introvert and all that. But as a person, as a professional, he was also somebody, who really set a high bar for himself. He was somebody who valued credibility. VK Murthy always keeps bringing this up in the documentary that, he credits Guru Dutt with all his own artistry. He says that it was Guru Dutt who was able to extract this and so forth. Again, there is also one very heart touching bit that he mentions in the documentary that when he received the phone call informing him of his death, the first thing that followed in his mind after shock and sadness is this kind of a realization that, along with Guru Dutt, perhaps, some of his technique had left him too. Because, that's the degree to which he credits Guru Dutt with, whatever artistry he was able to bring on the screen. But guys, let's go back to his cinema. I think we went a little bit overboard on the person. But I just wanted to talk about his cinema, and like I said before, I saw it in three different phases. I look at it like the pre-Pyasa phase. This is probably the phase, when he was perhaps the happiest and he was watching foreign films, Hollywood films, many a times with Devanand, and probably, just saying to himself, hey, probably we should do something like this, after having seen some film. So this is the time that he was making Bazi, Jal, Aar Paar, Mr. and Mrs. 55. So, for example, Bazi is a noir, right? Baz is a period adventure film. Jal is again a noir. Mr. and Mrs. 55 is a rom-com. One of his best films, in my opinion. It's one of my
actually,
favorite films. And a lot of social commentary there too. Aar Paar is a very interesting film too because it's probably one of the earliest crime comedies, if you will. So Aar Paar is also a very interesting film.
I think before Pyasa, Arpar is my favorite Guru Dutt film, not Mr. and Mrs. 55. Arpar is
Okay.
like it flows so
It is a wonderful
well,
film.
brilliantly, brilliantly.
Yeah, wonderful.
but for me again, it's Mr. and Mrs. 55 for personal reasons. First of all, he's a cartoonist in the film. I started as a cartoonist.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Secondly,
are
the
you a
film,
communist or a
film
cartoonist?
I'm a cartoonist. So, but yeah, that line, Abrar Alvi's line. Uh, क्या तुम कम्युनिस्ट हो जी नहीं कार्टूनिस्ट. Second thing was I think this was one of the first films that featured R.K. Lakshman's cartoons.
Yeah.
And also a close up of R.K. Lakshman's hand.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was there. Yeah. And some real good punchlines and Johnny Walker.
I think
So-
Johnny Walker came into his own through Mr. and Mrs. 55. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
he was there in films before that also, but I think in Bazi also. But I think Mr. and Mrs. 55, he completely came into his own.
Yeah.
And Guru Dutt gave
That
him
is-
a lot
that
of
is-
space also. Yeah.
That is what, Johnny Lever and Bazigar. It's
Yeah,
exactly
exactly.
that, yeah.
That exactly
Yeah.
same parallel.
Johnny Lever was there, but with Bazigar, Johnny Lever was everywhere. So that's what
Everywhere.
happened with Johnny
Johnny
Walker,
Walker.
actually.
Johnny
Yeah,
Walker.
with
I
Mr. and
think
Mrs. 55.
in initially we do not talk about this fact that though before Bazi, so Devanand was already a star even before Bazi, and that's how he brought Guru Dutt to direct Bazi after Navketan's first film was a flop. But before Bazi, I think Devanand was a usual romantic star. For example, I would say that Wanted gave Salman Khan a certain image. Before
Yeah.
that, also Salman was a star, and he was a big star. I think Devanand had become a star before Bazi, and that's how there was this old friendship. And he says, why don't you come? And we had promised whoever became a star will give the other a chance. And he gave Guru Dutt to direct Bazi. But I think it was Bazi who gave Devan the definitive flamboyant image. If you watch Bazi now, it is the Devan we know. uh, the
Right.
hint of Devanand we know later. We came to know later. If you watch films before Bazi, it is a different Devanand. So Guru Dutt had a lot of contribution in making Devanand
Yeah,
a
making them good.
flamboyant star. We don't really talk about this fact a lot because Jal didn't do so well
Yeah,
as Bazi. So and their association ended with it. I think they should have worked together. That's a personal feeling. They could have created many better films.
yeah.
This is regarding Bazi, and I think Bazi had a lot of things going for it.
Bazi, for me, the song, yeah, Geeta Wali
Yeah,
song
song,
when
song.
Devand
Geeta
is
Wali song.
entering. Yeah, killer
Totally.
song.
Yeah, killer
The
song.
way it's picturized, the way it's
Uh,
picturized.
That's actually the point when Guru Dutt took notice of Murthy. Suno
Yeah.
Gajar Kya Gaye
Alok
song
Sharma.
where the camera
That
zooms out
mirror
of
wala
from
shot.
the
Yeah.
right from the mirror reflection and tracks Devanand in the
Yeah.
club. He was really impressed with Murthy's smoothness with the camera.
And I keep on telling you this simple line that you know whenever you watch a Guru Dutt film, it does not feel dated, and it's a
Yeah.
huge statement. I always feel that people. I keep on saying this, and people say, "Ha ha, ये तो किसी के बारे में." It is not true for all filmmakers of 1950s or 60s. It is not. There are very few, very selected filmmakers जिनकी films के बारे में you can say, okay, you can watch Arpar or you can watch Mr. and Mrs. 55 or Abazi or Pyasa. They do not feel dated, except that they are black and white films. Uh,
Yeah.
they still stand the test of time. So,
Even the
so that
scale in
is
Kagaz Ke
what
Phool.
keeps them relevant even now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes,
The
those
scale
low
in
angle
Kagaz Ke
shots,
Phool.
the
Yeah.
opening shots of they are like outstanding. अभी वो VFX से
I,
create करते हैं those
हाँ, I'm
such
getting goosebumps talking about it. कि
yeah
वो
yeah
बड़ा एक स्टैचू के पास से एक शॉट है. Insane.
insane
Absolutely.
insane
Yeah. When
Insane.
I
and
watched that
everything
film
real. There
recently
is
for this
no VFX.
podcast, one thing that stood
Man,
out is
even
that
VFX is unable to catch up with sorry, Himanshu. VFX is unable to catch with that insane level of scale. I mean, I watched Jubilee and all. There was like really amazing VFX there, but
yes,
still, Kagas Ke Phool remains Kagas Ke Phool.
absolutely. I was just going to
Karvin.
say that Jubilee
No,
has such a huge hangover of Kagas Ke Phool. Even the
Kagas Ke
I think
Phool,
studio, that
major
the
yeah,
way
even
that
the
has been
songs, even
modeled.
the audio, even the
Yeah,
sound of Jubilee. Absolutely.
absolutely, absolutely. The song, totally.
बिछड़े सभी बारी बारी that
Yes, yes,
the
same
yeah,
song.
lines
I actually
सारे के
asked
सारे अकेले
Vikram and Atul when they were on the
हाँ,
podcast to talk about Jubilee. And they said certainly, I mean, that was at the back of their minds, but they did not want to like make it only about that song, but that time. But when you talk about that time, then Kagas Ke Phool is such a tall film that will always show up, and it's all about that melancholy and the tragedy of being in the film business. Guys, one thing I just wanted to bring up before we move on to the second phase of Guru Dutt, and that's from Arpar, and that's the song, Mohabbat Karlo Ji Barlo. What a fascinating song. I mean, again, like Yasir said that these films don't feel dated. I mean, that song, you take it out right now, and it feels like a music video from today.
yeah,
Guru Dutt plays this taxi driver, who is hired by Aga and his girlfriend to drive them to the beach. They reach the beach and suddenly they break into this song where everybody from Aga's girlfriend to Guru Dutt to the girls at the beach shack, they all start singing, and it's a wonderful opener year song. And it's just the scenario. I mean, it's so fresh, it's so peppy, and it's a very different kind of Guru Dutt from
I
the one
I
that we have kind of canonized, but very interesting scenario.
I love the energy of Arpar. When I say Arpar is my favorite pre-Pyasa film, it's not because it's a great film or anything like that. I just love the energy of Arpar and Guru Dutt's style of filmmaking and even as
Same.
an actor.
Yeah.
Because, he talked about the song, the first song. He comes out of jail, Kalu Birju, and he goes to his taxi malik. Then he comes out after the meeting and he meets Shama at the first scene.
yeah,
And they fight. And Shama says, मैं पुलिस बुला लूं. He said, मैं बुला देता हूँ, आप क्यों? And they had this little झगड़ा. And immediately there is a हल्का सा म्यूजिक इफेक्ट और वो जगदीप उधर भागता है छोटा सा जगदीप बाल कलाकार जगदीप and the song begins kabhi yaar kabhi paar and it is so breezy the whole situation and like we say that working women है, वो जो मजदूर है, वो ईंटें उठा के जा रही है. There is
Yes,
this
yes,
construction.
it's
Very,
beautifully
very
shot. Yeah.
innovative songs. Even some other songs where they are dancing around a static car. The way they have picturized that song in our
Oh
part.
man, that one, yeah, yeah.
Amazing. I mean, yeah, there is nothing, absolutely no props, no sets. It's just one static car, and the camera is moving from inside the car, outside the. I mean, amazing. Just watch that song, and you will understand that he was really a wizard in song picturization. Kyuki, when we talk about a Pyasa climax, or when we talk about Kagas Ke Phool, Waqt Ne Kiya Kya Hasi Sifam, we already have so many props. We have huge sets. You cannot replicate that magic even through VFX. So we have something in those songs. In R Par, you have to see songs like R Par, jahan par there is minimal budget, they don't have any set, there is no background, and yet the song is so magical. That is where you see his wizardry.
So that is
Yeah.
why he was an expensive filmmaker, because he would have been blocking those shots for days with his POP.
Yeah, because it's not an easy song. It's
Good
It's
not
not
point.
an
easy.
Yeah.
easy song.
It's not an easy song
Actually,
to
that
play.
song is a precursor to Pal Bhar Ke Liye Koi Hame Pyar Kar Le, where they have
Ah,
like
you're absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah.
80
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
windows
Yeah.
in the song, right?
Huh.
Hundreds of windows. So
Hundreds of.
here they use just those 4 windows and
Huh.
do the entire song,
uh,
all the windshields and everything, car ke charo taraf. There they have like this entire bungalow and all the
Yeah,
windows on the bungalow.
all the windows.
The
Song
insanity of,
visualization, I mean, Guru, that
yeah,
it's,
yeah,
we can just talk on that for an hour.
Go on and on, seriously.
On and on. I mean,
yeah,
his
yeah.
songs played like micro movies. I think this is something I forget. Somebody has said this many a times. Maybe it is Sham Benegal, but don't quote me on this. But he, said that his songs played like micro movies. Sometimes they were their own micro narratives, but they were always fluid. Seamless. They used to flow seamlessly from the prior scene. And like Yasser said, there is visible artistry in his songs. You can pick almost any song directed by Guru Dutt, and you will be able to spot interesting technique to go with the narrative of the song. His style also stood out for the way it deviated from the existing trends, I think. He preferred closer shots to mid and long shots, which was the existing norm. So if you look at Guru Dutt songs, most of them, there are a lot of close shots than mid and long shots. Raj Khosla, renowned for song visualization, arguably picturized the most popular song in Hindi cinema. Honed his skills from Guru Dutt for
I think
song
I think I
picturization.
think he took a lot from Guru Dutt. It was
Absolutely.
exact. I think he just copied. It is
It's
not
like,
the right
yeah,
word. I think it's not the right
And he
word
admits
to
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
imbibe,
he became
imbibe, imbibe. Imbibed is the word.
completely imbibed.
So it's
If you
Guru Dutt, then
watch
Raj Khosla, then Vijay Anand.
then
Correct.
Vijay Anand.
Yes.
I think Raj Khosla and Vijay Anand should be contemporaries, right?
Yeah, but
Uh,
Yes,
Vijay
yes,
Anand
they were.
actually assisted Raj Khosla for some time
Raj Khosla
okay.
precedes
in
a little bit.
CID and
Yes.
all. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Raj Khosla precedes.
In fact, this is Raj Khosla's centenary year as well. So he's
Yes,
exactly the
yes,
same age
Yeah,
as Guru.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
yeah.
So he must have been a little elder to Vijay Anand.
Right.
And Raj Khosla का जो time रहा, I think बहुत ज़्यादा रहा. He was a prolific filmmaker
Yeah.
for a very
For a
long
long
time.
time.
Unlike
Yes.
Guru Dutt, who died at 39, I think
Hmm.
he continued to churn out
Yeah, he
Makeups,
was
yeah.
working well into 80s, right? I
very
mean,
very
Well,
successful.
like मैं तुलसी तेरे आंगन की and all. हाँ.
even
And right up to
Dostana
right
is
Naqab.
Raj
I think
Khosla, right?
Naqab was the last film, right?
Naqab was the last.
Naqab was the last, as far as I remember. Rishi Kapoor and Farah.
Right. I think
I
so, yes.
I think so. I think so.
But coming back to song visualization, guys, I would love to hear you talk about some of the songs. I have a couple of songs here, which are famous and not so famous. So I'll just take a minute to, quickly talk about those, and then you guys can, tell me about your favorite moments from Guru Dutt's songs, especially for the song visualization. But simple things he did, like for example, in जाने वो कैसे लोग थे जिनके, the camera keeps zooming in on everybody else in the room. Like, so the camera is zooming in to Rahman, it's zooming in on Mala Sinha, and it's zooming out from Guru Dutt. So, it's symbolizing his alienation from the rest in the room and from the society. Until until the bichad gaya har saathi deke pal do pal ka saath antara, that the pattern switches. And now the camera is zooming out from Malasena and zooming into Guru Dutt. Just something so simple. I mean, it's just a pattern of how you zoom in and zoom out. But, it's completely changing the way that he's telling the story, right? So going back to what Benegal was saying about his songs being micro narratives, this is a great example of that, I thought. It's just a simple zoom in, zoom out pattern that it establishes and then completely flips it up.
Guru Dutt didn't believe in, having, intro music to the song or anything. His song would be like scene and cut to straight
Yeah.
song, straight vocals.
Most of the songs, I
Most of
didn't
the
find
song.
in all the songs, but most of the
But
important
most of
songs.
the songs, yeah.
Yeah.
के सीधे dialogue हुआ, like you were saying, कि Jagdeep runs and the song just starts. While Raj Kapoor had this entire, Shankar Jagdishan ka grand violin pieces for a minute or so before the actual song begins. So
पूरा माहौल बनाना.
पूरा माहौल बनना. But
हाँ.
for me, I love Guru Dutt's music. I love Raj Kapoor's music. I'm a little
Yeah,
partial towards Raj Kapoor, Shankar Jagdishan's music because it gives you the rich feeling of, how much work has gone into this music before the song actually comes into the play. I mean, there's this compilation of Shankar Jagdishan intro violins. And that goes on for like 2 hours. Like there are 2 volumes of it on YouTube. Somebody has like chopped all the violin pieces. There's like good 2 hours of music here. 2 hours into 2. So that is like around 4 hours of music that doesn't have any vocals. It's actually introduction to the song. So
it's such grandeur, no?
such grandeur. And the same year Avara comes, you have a dream sequence. You have Avara ka songs here. Every song is like a grand piece of orchestra and grand visual. And that very year, there's Bazi, which was like the second highest grossing film of that year. And you have songs that are like cut karke songs are rahe. And the songs are equally good.
Which is also to say that they had their own voice and they ऐसा नहीं है कि if they followed each other's style. I think they had their own distinct styles completely and they followed it throughout their career.
Definitely.
So nowadays तो it's like कि वो वैसा song एक चला एक ऐसा song यहाँ पे कर लेते हैं. Like
ऐसा नहीं
there's nothing there's nothing over there. वो Guru Dutt has his own voice, own style.
And which is also which is a very छोटा सा anecdote which I remember is following their own styles, their own voice. There's this very fascinating anecdote in Bimal Mitra's book that after Sahib-e Ghulam is released, like the first day, and there is feedback from audiences and some of Guru Dutt's closest people, and they say, public is not liking the climax, and it's it's too sad or whatever. And then at that time, Guru Dutt is also acting in K. Asif's Love and God. And K. Asif is this Mughal-e-Azam filmmaker. And in the next film, Guru Dutt is playing the lead protagonist, Love and God, which is a Laila Majnu thing. So Guru Dutt goes to watch Sahib Biwi aur Ghulam ka show, and he comes out of the theater and he goes straight to K. Asif's house and tells him, this public is not liking it and so many people are telling me blah, blah, blah. So what is your advice? So K. Asif tells him, okay, this particular thing is slowing it down and this is very serious. You should do add some light movement. Just shoot a different climax. So he comes out and he tells Abrar Alvi, the writer, that you write a different climax. He calls up Meena Kumari and says, okay, we need a one-day shoot. Bahut jaldi. And he goes everything. And Sham tak aate he comes back and he tells Abrar Alvi, तो क्या हो गया if K. Asif is a big filmmaker? I am also a great filmmaker. He says, नहीं, मैं भी तो filmmaker हूँ, तो ऐसा कैसे मैं नहीं मानता? And I think it is what I have done is the right thing. And just scrap everything.
Meanwhile, Bimal Mitra and this guy had written another climax for the film.
Another climax.
Abrar and Bimal.
अगली सुबह. And अगली सुबह Guru Dutt comes कि यार मैं भी तो filmmaker हूँ, मेरा भी तो अपना कुछ है, मैं नहीं बदलूंगा, है ना? And this is कि शाम में तो आप कुछ और कह रहे हैं, नहीं, what I have done is the correct climax. I am not going to change it. So वो भी था कि यार ठीक है, मैं थोड़ी देर के लिए डोल गया, but मैंने बहुत conviction के साथ फिल्म बनाई है, and it will work, and ultimately it did.
पर देन आपको एडवाइस भी कौन दे रहा है वहाँ पे? एडवाइस भी कोई ऐसे हल्का आदमी एडवाइस नहीं दे रहा था ना. तो आप के आसिफ के सुन के आओगे तो थोड़ी देर
तो हिल जाओ. होगी ना, हाँ
उतना
हाँ
उतना
हाँ,
वेटेज तो आप दोगे उस बात को
उतना
कि ये
वेटेज तो
करना
दोगे
चाहिए
कि यार
भाई.
कह रहा है, इतना बड़ा आदमी कह रहा है, तो
Something worth
I
considering.
think
Yes.
it was a different world also. Like when we casually say it was the golden phase of Indian cinema, I think I would like to believe that, because the kind of professionals working in that era, like songwriters, music director is talking about Shankar Jaikishan and their orchestra and their grandeur in their music, and Raj Kapoor and Guru Dutt and Mehboob Khan. The kind of talent that was working. I think business was totally secondary for all these names we have taken.
Yeah,
I think the first thing was always the passion. I think I can totally relate to that. कि भैया क्या किस तरह के दुनिया में काम कर रहे थे और कैसे लोग थे. You have to believe that it was really the golden phase of Indian cinema.
that is why we constantly hear about stories, hear these stories about people, they beg, borrowed, steal, लेकिन पिक्चर
Yeah,
बना रहे थे.
yeah, yeah. They
और 10
mortgage their
पिक्चर फ्लॉप हो गई
houses
तो
and
11वां,
whatnot.
हाँ
Yeah.
11वीं फिल्म बनाएगा वो आदमी. तो इट वाज लाइक अ नशा. इट वाज मतलब ये नहीं करूंगा तो मैं और क्या करूंगा. सो
हाँ,
मोस्ट
और
ऑफ देम वर डूइंग दिस, राइट?
and they were so hurt when something they wanted to convey to the audiences,
हम्म.
and they refused to understand or accept it, which happened with Kagas Ke Phool, which happened with Mera Naam Joker. There are two glaring examples. There are so many things we say about that his cinema was intensely personal. It really was. He was taking like direct lifts from his own life. Like
So you don't need his interview actually. The thing that we are
Exactly. That's
complaining
his
about,
films are more than
he
enough.
doesn't
Yeah.
have
his
an
films are,
interview. You have
huh,
Pyasa and Kage Se Phool. All the
because
interviews are there in those two
everything is
films.
done. His own
Yeah.
struggle, rejections, his father's struggle and rejection. That made Pyasa.
Yeah.
Pyasa applies to his filmmaking rejections, though he's a poet. और एक और इससे और कागज के फूल तो of course it's semi autobiographical and you know confused relationship with his muse and disturbed relationship with his wife. So exactly his life being played out like SD Burman said, ये तुम्हारी जिंदगी है तुम क्यों बना रहे हो? Like on
Mm.
record he said that.
I mean, I would love to hear you two talk about the song visualization of "Waqt Ne Kiya Kya Si Sitam." I mean, it's an absolute classic. A lot has been said about it. So, but I would love to hear, is something that has not been said yet, or something that really struck you both, because it's probably his greatest song. It's especially craft wise. It's Veda Rahman's favorite song. She's on record saying that it's her favorite song. Essentially it's a poetic visualization of the very essence of that film, right, compressed into a few minutes. You have a successful director who discovers an unknown woman, brings her into spotlight, while he gradually fades away from fame and spotlight while she continues to flourish. And then there's that famous light beam shot, where their
Yeah.
souls meet underneath, but they will never end up together. It's so heartbreakingly beautifully done. And of course, there's that whole story how V.K. Murthy did that with two large mirrors, creating that famous beam shot. Just what a song! I mean, musically, lyrically, and visually, it's just a landmark.
I think what I feel about this song, much has been written about it, and like you said, B.K. Murthy's entire craft of creating those beams with the help of mirrors, and Guru Dutt's own contribution in asking that you have to do such and such thing in the song. But I think पूरी कागज के फूल एक तरफ and this song एक तरफ. Even if you haven't watched Kagas Ke Phool and if you have watched this song, like in the 90s, they used to create these music videos, which were a story in itself. And there were some
Yeah.
good videos. I'm not comparing it with Guru Dutt song or anything, but just
Right.
concept wise, because I think when during that phase of music videos, you used to go to a filmmaker or a director and used to say, okay, this is the song and we have to tell a story through this song. And the entire storyboard was created keeping a story in mind. And I think I don't know if Guru Dutt worked like that, a storyboard or like that, but that song in itself is the entire story of Kagas Ke Phool. Even if you do not watch Kagas Ke Phool, the long film which had some truly boring scenes and song scenes that do not fit in that narrative, there was some problem. That is, I'm not saying it as some specialist who has written on Guru Dutt, but as purely as an audience, which wasn't a
Yeah.
problem with his previous films, or even with Saab Bibi or Gulam. I think Kagaz Ke Phool had some problematic scenes in terms of uh, which did not seem to fit in the entire narrative. But this song, if you watch this song, and not just, this is just not Guru Dutt's greatest song. I think it is one of the greatest songs in Hindi cinema
Of
even
all
now.
time.
In this
I
number,
say,
yes,
and I
yes.
say this when we have someone like Sanjay Leela Bhansali, who visually uh, uh, has created certain songs and certain scenes, and which craft wise, which is certain great things he has done, and it is easier to do. Technically, it is slightly easier to do than it must have been in Guru Dutt's time. Even then, uh, uh, it is right there. Uh, uh, that particular song, and that is one of the greatest thing, that जिस सॉन्ग को 60 साल और 70 साल हो गए हैं, वो अभी भी किसी भी सॉन्ग को टक्कर दे सकता है, जिसमें आपके सारे स्पेशल इफेक्ट्स हैं, जिसमें जिसमें आप एआई लगा लीजिए, जिसमें आप लाइटिंग कुछ भी लगा लीजिए, that song will remain there.
That song is
Some
hypnotizing. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
hypnotizing.
especially when you're watching the movie, when I was watching the movie again for the podcast, I watched that song 2, 3 times. I just went back after it finished the first time, then again went back because it really plays on your mind and you want to see that part again. And it's like 3 minutes or so. So it's not a particularly long song. But
अच्छा, एक और कागज के फूल डिडंट वर्क, इस पे भी सब लोग कह ही चुके हैं. आई थिंक देयर वाज अ रीजन इट डिडंट वर्क. मुझे उस वक्त के ऑडियंसेस इतने कमाल के लगते हैं. आलोक वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट आवारा. आवारा वाज अ ब्लॉकबस्टर. प्यासा, अ फिल्म व्हिच हैज अ पोएट, एक बेचारा
Vijay,
झोला छाप विजय, पोएट जो टूटे हुए दिल का, जो रोतलू है ना, जो बिल्कुल अ पोएट एज अ प्रोटैगनिस्ट, अ फेल्ड पोएट. And the film is one of the top five hits of that year. It
of
says
that
a
year,
lot
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
it tells us a lot about the audiences of those times, जो हम कभी बात नहीं करते. प्यासा जैसी फिल्म सरप्राइज्ड गुरुदत्त के इट बिकेम अ सक्सेस. ही वाज रेडी फॉर अ फेलियर बिकॉज ही ऑलरेडी हैड आर पार, मिस्टर एंड मिसेस 55, एंड देन सीआईडी, which was the year's biggest hit. उसके बाद उसने ये रिस्क लिया था कि चलो ये पिट भी जाएगी ना, बट इट इज माय ड्रीम सब्जेक्ट, आई एम गोइंग टू मेक इट. एंड इट सरप्राइज्ड हिम, एंड दैट्स द रीजन ही टुक अ रिस्क. अच्छा, ये चल गई तो अब मैं कागज के फूल
अब
बनाऊंगा.
मैं कुछ भी
तो
कर सकता हूँ, हाँ.
अब मैं कुछ भी कर सकता हूँ. तो it says a lot about people who are going to watch films in theater and who made प्यासा a commercial success. Critical तो वो किसी भी दौर में बन जाएगी, है ना. क्रिटिकल सक्सेस तो कागज के फूल भी लेटर में बन गई, लेकिन
हाँ.
प्यासा as a commercial success, a huge commercial success, says a lot about people watching those kind of films in that era. हम ही सारे
But
हिंदुस्तानी लोग थे.
as a story, I feel Pyasa is more cohesive as compared to
हाँ
Kagas
हाँ
Ke Phool.
हाँ. कागज के
no
फूल
And
doubt.
है.
the cohesiveness in a story always works, I feel. I
हाँ
mean,
हाँ.
people might reject the film for some time. Secondly, at that point in time, you had like no home video or nothing, so you'll
Yeah.
go and watch the film, right?
हम्म,
So, अगर cohesive है, a word of mouth है, so the film
हम्म,
always had a second and third chance of surviving.
हाँ.
And
Cohesive and
if the
entertaining.
and
Entertaining.
entertaining.
Entertaining, yeah.
I mean, I think प्यासा में ना महमूद.
Yeah.
हाँ,
For the
महमूद.
first
Yeah.
time,
He's his
I
brother. Yeah.
disliked. For the
हाँ
first time, I disliked Mahmood.
हाँ, नेगेटिव रोल. हाँ,
Negative.
वो नेगेटिव
So
रोल.
and it's a cohesive film also because Abrar Alvi is controlling the film in his writing like throughout. वो बिखरने नहीं दे रहा है कहानी को, वो पकड़ के चल रहे हैं कहानी को.
हाँ हाँ.
जो मुझे प्रॉब्लम लगती है कागज के फूल में, और मुझे बहुत मेजर प्रॉब्लम मेरा नाम जोकर में भी लगता है कि
हाँ,
both the films are not very cohesive. They just they're like ramblings rather than writings.
हाँ.
So हाँ, तो हर सीन है उसमें वो जो उसको वहां नहीं होना चाहिए.
हाँ. And by the
And
time
these
he
scenes
was
are long.
making Kagas Ke Phool, his mental health was really
Mm.
In
totally
shambles. Yeah, in
in
shambles.
shambles, and this is on record कि कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा था उनके. He used to shoot and shoot and shoot and scrap, and he was doing it a lot. और वो फिर वो मैजिक क्रिएट नहीं हुआ in terms as a cohesive film, not as a
Yeah.
classic, because there are so many sequences कि वो classic तो है ही. एक फिल्म में ऑलरेडी
वो
इतने
तो है,
कमाल के,
इतना कुछ आपने दे दिया है, हाँ.
इतना कुछ तो दे ही दिया आपने, तो वो
What
तो
do
है.
you guys make of the in-laws track in Kagas Ke Phool? A lot of people, don't like that particularly. I find it boring. But I thought, it does set up that family and
पहली
that
बात,
one section of the society
I
which
have I
was
have a
like that.
theory. I have a theory. I have a theory that महेश भट्ट को जब आशिकी के गाने सुनाए गए तो उन्होंने कहा कि आई विल वीव अ स्टोरी अराउंड इट, है ना। मुझे ऐसा लगता है, मतलब दिस इज टोटल, क्या बोलना चाहिए, माय फैंटेसी। मुझे लगता है गुरुदत्त वांटेड टू टेल अ स्टोरी ऑफ अ फिल्म मेकर, हिज वाइफ एंड हिज म्यूज। वो उनके पास था जैसे आशिकी के गाने थे उनके पास, एंड ही वीव्ड स्टोरीज एंड कैरेक्टर अराउंड दैट। जिसमें वो जॉनी वॉकर अंग्रेजी बोलते हैं, जो वो बिल्कुल, जो ही वाज आउट ऑफ हिज कंफर्ट जोन कंप्लीटली। आई थिंक देयर इज
Yeah,
जस्ट वन
yeah,
फिल्म
yeah.
इन जॉनी वॉकर्स करियर वेयर ही इज आउट ऑफ हिज कंफर्ट जोन, totally out of his comfort zone. He has tried really hard, but सोचिए वो, और वो वहीं से बिगड़ जाता है कि he's trying too hard. He never tries
I
hard.
tried avoiding saying this actually. मैं बहुत देर
हाँ
से मेरे अंदर यहाँ पे था, गले पे था वो,
हाँ हाँ।
कि यार जॉनी
वो,
वॉकर से अंग्रेजी क्यों बुलवा रहे हो आप?
हाँ
तो
नहीं, जरूरत नहीं थी उनकी, जरूरत मतलब ये उनकी अंग्रेजी का मजाक उड़ाना नहीं है। आई थिंक
उनकी अंग्रेजी का मजाक नहीं, बट
he was out
हाँ,
of his comfort zone. It was not his comfort
एग्जैक्टली,
zone. हाँ।
एग्जैक्टली.
तो वो गुरुदत्त के दोस्त थे और करीबी थे। गुरुदत्त gave him plum roles in every film with songs, with major songs यार, मतलब
And you had access to
है ना।
Balra Sani.
And
Balra
then,
Sani could have played that role. अंग्रेजी बुलवानी थी.
हाँ, अंग्रेजी बोलो कुछ भी कर सकते थे, लेकिन
हाँ,
उसमें कई और वो पूरा, फिर वो इन लॉज वाला ट्रैक पूरा, कि उनको थोड़ा सा नेगेटिव भी दिखाना है और अपना, वो सब बड़ा ऐसा था कि फिल करना है, और 3 घंटे की फिल्म
थोड़ा
बनानी है तो
मसाला
फिल
भी
करना है
डाल
कि मेरे
देते हैं
पास ये
वाला सीन
सॉन्ग्स
हो
हैं।
गया है वो, पता है? हाँ.
हाँ, वो मुझे हमेशा आशिकी पे जाता है मेरा ध्यान, कि अच्छा उनको भट्ट साहब को गाने मिले थे तो उन्होंने फिल्म क्रिएट कर दी। समथिंग मस्ट हैव हैपेंड, मुझे तो ऐसा लगता है कि जो 3 कैरेक्टर थे उन्हीं पे रहती फिल्म तो ज्यादा अच्छा हो सकता था,
Yeah.
उससे आगे बढ़ती ना। और वो इतना
इनफैक्ट
कंफ्यूजिंग
वो
है,
चल भी जाती फिल्म, बहुत अच्छे से
उनका
चल
और
जाती थी
वहीदा
फिल्म.
जी वाला ट्रैक इतना कंफ्यूजिंग है कि आखिर तक आप वो फिल्म देखिए, अभी भी आपकी समझ में नहीं आएगा कि चाहते क्या है भाई।
But guys, coming back to the song visualization, I just quickly
चलिए।
wanted to, talk about two more songs. One is not that well known, and one is a classic. And one is from this unreleased film called Picnic. And the
या,
song is called
साधना.
Kitna Rangeen. Yeah. है ये चांद सितारों का समा साधना song. It's shot on a yacht deck. And again, to reiterate Guru Dutt's eye for beauty, the yacht deck looks like a living room of a mid-century modern house with the cane furniture, wooden cane table. So it's like the man had a really good eye for beauty. We all know that. But even in movies that never got released, and so most people have not seen this, you can see that. So that was one song that I wanted to mention quickly. And then, of course, we cannot have an episode on Guru Dutt without talking about Jine Naaz Hai Hind Par Wo Kaha Hai.
वो कहाँ है?
So that song, I mean, it's essentially it's about the depravity of the society, but that's just a metaphor, right? I mean, the red light district, and that song connects with generations differently. So,
Yeah.
my question to you was a little bit different about the song itself. Like, do you think that song hit the generation of that time way differently than it would hit the generation of today, or it hit our generation?
So, what I feel is, जिन्हें नाज है हिंद पे वो कहाँ है, is 1960s, right? Around 1960s or late 50s में.
1956, yeah.
56,
Mid
late
50s, yeah.
50s, mid 50s. This
56
is
it was
when
shot, I
the,
think 57 was Pyasa released
yeah,
in
yeah.
57.
So for
February
the
February
first 10 years after,
57 Pyasa release हुई थी, so it must be shot in 56.
56. So say first 10 years after independence, when the Nehruvian dream actually started showing some cracks. Uh, so every poet was writing something. Majid Sultanpuri was jailed for writing something for 2 years. Balra Sani was in jail. Sahir was writing these things. Shailendra had some poems that were not filmy songs, but poems that were actually questioning the Nehruvian dream actually. So Shailendra had this Jalra Punjab, then he had this Bhagat Singh Janam Na Lena
Yeah, yeah.
something, right? And then you have Sahir saying Jine Naaz Hai Hind Pe Wo Kahan Hai. Majru already was jailed and he never wrote anything political after that. He only mostly wrote, romantic songs. So this was the first heartbreak that the nation was going through after the euphoria of those 10 years. And I think post that, every decade has a heartbreaking moment. So maybe 56, then maybe by 66, 67, something would have happened. उसके बाद एंग्री यंग मैन एरा आता है, वहां पे तो मतलब everyone was angry and everyone was asking the same question. And today I think every 2 days we have a moment where we can, ask a question, किरण आ सके पे वो कहाँ है.
Hmm.
So I think, yeah, it's as timeless as, those songs that were getting created in US also in the 1960s. Actually,
Right.
1960s was the
Yeah. Yeah.
era when, most
Absolutely.
of
Yeah.
this, if we can call them
Introspection started. Yeah.
decent wala songs or introspection wala songs, when you start questioning everything that you felt was idealistic.
Hmm.
So this was a reflection of that time, but then that time never got over. The nightmare
Hmm.
never got over. The reality
I
was
think I think
always,
you're
heartbreaking.
right. I think when you talk about these days and like the anger was gradual. I think uh, 56 or 57 when Pyasa released in 57. So this song must have been shot in 56, and Sahir had written this poem even before that. Right.
Yeah.
So it was the beginning of shattering that dream, which we all must have expected after gaining independence. So, but at the same time, there was anger, there was sarcasm, there was a comment on the Nehruvian dream, and then capitalistic society and society that prostitutes everything, because the entire metaphor of Wahida Rahman playing a prostitute, yet she being a gold-hearted woman, and it's the publisher and the other negative characters in the film that is actually prostituting Vijay the poet's name after he supposedly dies. But that anger also, because I think it came from the entire scenario, the screenplay. It's about poets, it's about publishers. So there was a lot of nafasat in that anger also. There was a certain sophistication. So they are, even this is sheer poetry. Unlike 1970s, जब जब एंग्री यंग मैन आया जंजीर का, तो गुस्सा बढ़ गया, गुस्सा आ गया, चीखो पुकार आ गई. वो नहीं था वहां तक. तो धीरे धीरे
Yeah.
ग्रेजुअली बढ़ रहा है. एंड देन व्हेन आलोक टॉक्स अबाउट कि आजकल तो हर 3-4 दिन में होता है, तो आई थिंक अब तो पूरा कोई कोई वो
सिस्टम ही खत्म हो चुका है.
कोई सरहद नहीं है कि अभी तो ज्यादा करना नहीं है ना. यू जस्ट गो ऑन सोशल मीडिया, जस्ट गो ऑन ट्विटर एंड यू जस्ट राइट अ फ्यू लाइंस, गुस्सा उतर गया और पता नहीं. दैट एंगर इज ग्रेजुअली इंक्रीजिंग विद ईच पासिंग डे. दैट्स व्हाट आई फील. तो अब तरीका भी क्या है, अब उतने सोफिस्टिक, अगर प्यासा का गाना अब आप बनाओगे तो लोगों को लगेगा ये तो बहुत सॉफ्ट है, ये तो कुछ कर ही नहीं रहा है, ये तो किसी की गर्दन ही नहीं कटी, या एनीथिंग which shows anger in a different way, but it is a very angry song. It is a searing comment on everything that went wrong, that was going wrong. The dreams shattered because आम आदमी कितनी मुश्किल से आजादी मिली है, हम सब हमारे पुरखे लड़े हैं, और क्या क्या हमें हमसे वादे किए गए थे जो इन 8 सालों में, वो वादे तो छोड़िए. और भी, मतलब इससे अच्छे तो वही थे. मतलब ये सब बातें भी तो होती
हाँ.
थी उस वक़्त, ये सब तो लोग बोलते थे कि इससे अच्छे तो वही थे, क्योंकि जब लोगों को नए उसमें कुछ समझ में नहीं आता तो लोग पीछे जाते हैं. पास्ट ऑलवेज अपीयर्स ब्राइटर. लेकिन इससे अच्छे तो वही थे. बट in that song and in other songs of Pyasa also, I think there is a searing comment, and that anger was beginning to appear, but that anger was quite sophisticated. बहुत नफासत थी उस गुस्से में. तो वो नफासत अब काम नहीं करेगी, बट वो इतनी खूबसूरत नफासत है that you still go back to this song. Whenever you talk about things going wrong, you use this line from the song, जिन्हें नाज है इन पर वो कहाँ है. So relatable है और relevant है. That was the power of the song, I think. And picturization, of course, I think we've talked
Beautiful. Yeah.
all
Tremendous.
about.
Tremendous. Again, VK Murthy, talks about that, the picturization of this. And again, he downplays, his own genius. And he just says that iconic scene where, Guru Dutt stands in that theater doorway, spreading his arms in a Christ-like figure. He says, I just put some backlight and a bit of pillar light on the face, and that's that. That's it. There was not too much thought to it. But it's such an iconic image from that film. And, whenever we think about Pyasa, we think about that particular shot.
That particular shot, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys might kill me for saying this, but when I was young, I had seen Pyasa, and I felt Mr. X in Bombay, more or less. Where but in a sophisticated manner. Mr.
Right,
X in
right.
Bombay में this guy disappears and everyone thinks he's dead.
disappears. हाँ. यार हो सकता है ये मैंने कभी सोचा. You're right actually.
That's a
Situation
good film
होती है.
too. That's a good film.
That's a good
That's an
that's a good
amazing
film.
film. That's like one of the best sci-fi films
But
I have liked. Like
I think
while
Vikram
growing
Bhatt
up,
remade that, right? Like some few
Mr. X
years
in
ago.
Bombay. That was so X. वो तो Invisible Man पे था.
वो तो
But
अलग.
Mr.
हाँ.
Mr. X
मिस्टर
Mr. X
इंडिया
in Bombay
मिस्टर
का जो
इंडिया में
पूरा
थोड़ा.
मिस्टर एक्स इन बॉम्बे का जो पूरा फॉर्मूला है कि एक आदमी गायब हो गया है और आप सोच रहे हो वो मर गया है, तो द साईफाई विद द सटायर इज सो गुड. उसके वो मर जाता है और उसके लिए कवि सम्मेलन वगैरह कुछ होता है, वेरी
हाँ
गोज,
हाँ
वो माइक
हाँ
उठा के
हाँ.
बात करता है एंड ऑल दोस थिंग्स हैपन, राइट?
काफी चीजें
लाइक
ना.
प्यासा ना,
Now that you are
काफी
saying,
काफी
now
प्यासा है
that
वो.
I just had a couple of anecdotes here, and they involve the Mangeshkar sisters. And the first one is, it's more like just a side note more than an anecdote. But Lata only recorded one song, right, for Guru Dutt, which is that song from Chaudavi Ka Chand, Badle Badle Mere Sarkar. Now, the interesting anecdote is that Lata was once asked, which director, according to her, did most justice to her films in to her songs in bringing them to screen. And the first name that she took was Vijay Anand, no brainer. We all would agree with that. And then the second name she took was Guru Dutt, for whom she only recorded one song. And so I thought, and even that song, I mean, it's a great song, but I uh, don't find the picturization of that song that appealing as compared to his other songs. But it's interesting that, Lata had that kind of, respect for Guru Dutt just for that one particular song. And what do you guys make of that? I mean, this was an interesting anecdote that I came across.
I have never heard about this particular anecdote,
Okay.
but listening to you that her first uh, best picturized song belonged to Vijay Anand. I think she's going with sheer talent of song picturization more than the song itself.
Could
That's
be.
what I feel. Because even with Vijay Anand, like you can debate were those Lata Mangeshkar's best songs. I mean, best songs, not best picturized song. If she says Vijay Anand number one and number two Guru Dutt, she's clearly talking only about picturization of
Picturization,
songs,
yes.
and not the songs.
No.
So
Picturization on screen, yeah.
So I think she was sound technically. That's what I can comment. That of course she's a legendary singer, but she was also sound technically in terms of filmmaking and picturization. That's what I can say. If her first choice for song picturization is Vijay Anand and number two is Guru Dutt, who else? What else can I say? But I have never come across this particular uh, anecdote. Because I have heard about how she denied singing a few songs of Guru Dutt films, saying that they belong to Geeta Dutt. That's one.
So when I was looking at some videos and some articles, it was like Guru Dutt always insisted on Geeta Dutt singing for his films, right? And then obviously the only other person was probably Asha Bhosle.
It stopped from Chaudhary Ka Chand.
Chaudhary, right?
She's Geeta Dutt stopped singing for Vahida from Chaudhary Ka Chand, and then I think it was Meena Kumari she sang for Sahib Bibi Aur Gulam.
Sahib Bibi.
For Vahida Rahman, it was Asha Bhosle again. Bhavra Bada Nadan was Asha Bhosle, right?
Yes.
So it was Asha Bhosle for Vahida. So Geeta stopped singing for Vahida starting from Chaudhary Ka Chand.
And then the second note is, and I hope I'm right about this. Yasser, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But apparently the last person that Guru Dutt spoke to the night that he committed suicide was Asha Bhosle, because he had called her up to ask, if Geeta Dutt was with her. And she said, no, she has left. And he said, where did she go? And she said, probably her home. And he hung up. And there is an Asha Bhosle clip in one of the documentaries where she says that, and then the next day he was gone.
It's very difficult to know. There's no official confirmations about who he called, because there were landline phones. Of course, there were no mobile phones, one, and there is no official take on this. I think in Ismat Chughai's book, it was Raj Kapoor he called before he died, with a different name, of was, but it was Raj Kapoor. But he called Raj Kapoor a few days ago because it was there officially somewhere.
Hmm.
I think he called up Geeta only a few hours for a
Yeah,
cinema.
that I've heard.
That I have heard,
He
but
tried to.
So he was
I
trying to reach her, right? But was he able to talk to her? Because I think he was trying to reach her. He could not reach her, and that's why I think he
no,
called.
I think he spent the day with his kids the day and kite flying and everything, and then he came home and the kids had
Then he was with
kids
Abrar Alvi for till like
kids were
1 and a half.
kids were living with his wife, of course, and he didn't want them to leave. There was something going on, but there is no clarity. There is,
Right,
of course, a build up and a run up about events which different people say different. Like most
Hmm. Hmm.
closest was Sabrar Alvi because he was there,
Hmm.
and he asked
Yeah.
Sabrar Alvi to leave. Then he goes into his bedroom and then bolts it from inside, and then the next morning he's on.
Hmm.
So there is a lot of conjecture about was it a suicide, was it deliberate, or was it an accident? Because there is no way you could know that. But the reality is that multiple times before that night he had tried to end his life. So it could be anything.
In Isma Chughtai's book, she says that slowly he had to increase the dosage because the previous dosage stopped working for him.
Stop work. That's how it works. I
Because
think.
whiskey with that sleeping pill used to give him a hit and he would sleep. Otherwise, he was unable to sleep. That is there in Vimal Mitra's book also.
Hmm.
So maybe a little more so that I can sleep peacefully.
But
You
he
never
was
know here.
but he was severely disturbed. If you read Bimal Mitra's account,
Yeah.
you will understand. Like a few
Yeah.
months or weeks before his death, he was severely. Uh, uh, I don't know if I use this word, but he was severely disturbed. Because
Yeah.
depression is all about diagnosis, and we're not specialists about the mental health issues.
Yeah.
But he was severely disturbed. The kind of conversations they were
Stuff he was
having,
going through.
just
Yeah.
the stuff he was going through, he was definitely disturbed, and his personal life was in great turmoil. So
Throughout the making of that film, actually, throughout the making of the film, so it was going on and on for
it was
quite
going
some
on and on for quite some time. Yeah.
because Bimal Mitra also writes that there were times when he would leave home and he won't go to his bungalow. He had a small farmhouse. He would go there and he would like paint the place. He'll make chai. He'll make dal
He
chawal.
started a brewery.
हाँ,
अब उसमें अपनी जो है
yeah,
brew कर रहा है. Then started
वो
some
सब शुरू कर दिया था
मुर्गियां
उन्होंने.
पालना. So he used
मुर्गी
to
पाल
do.
रहे हैं. हाँ,
He just wanted to run away. Then he would
yeah,
come to England and stay for a month or two.
yeah.
तो वो सब side में चल ही रहा था. There was a lot of disturbance
He
going
was
on.
going through a lot of this thing for
And
almost 3 years.
even those films, like I'm talking about post Sahib Bibi or Ghulam, he was signing these Madras producers.
Madras films for money and all.
Those
Yeah,
are like if you think about Guru Dutt as a sensible, a genius filmmaker, and look at his choice as an actor. Like there was this Bahurani, there was Bharosa, there was one more film.
yeah,
They were like regular run of the mill. I think B grade cinema. If
yeah.
remakes of South Indian films, they were not great. I mean, if you think about Guru Dutt post Pyasa, uh, he did like films of substance. And
Yeah.
when he was signing films, like even K. Asif's film, K. Asif was this huge director.
It's like Satyajit Ray making Himmat Wala.
So it's like even as an actor, he just wanted to escape, and that
And
was,
he needed money, I guess.
he
And
needed
there's one
money.
more incident. Yeah, and there's one more incident that Vimal Mitra mentions where in one of these films, his name is mentioned after Mala Sinha's name, and he loses his cool on the filmmakers.
But in
That
Pyasa,
again
Mala
shows
Sinha's name comes before his name.
Yeah, top
before
billing
his
is Mala
yeah.
Sinha. Yeah.
So the thing
top
is
billing is Mala
he's
Sinha.
he's going through something in his head. There are things that irks him.
Definitely.
There are things that he do, and
Yeah.
they both show you the kind of turmoil this man is going through, where you never know what his reaction will be to certain things. So in
He has
Vimal
entered like
Mitra's
that
book,
unstable phase of
yeah,
his.
unstable phase. So that was strange while reading it
Definitely,
because I remember,
even Devanand has said like he used to call Devanand during the last few months of his life, and Devanand in one particular interview says कि यार मैंने उसको बोला कि he says कि मुझे एक फिल्म बनानी है नवकेतन के साथ. So Devanand replies कि आ जाओ यार तुम्हारा अपना घर है, तुम जब चाहे आओ, तुम्हारे पास जो भी कहानी का आइडिया लेके आओ और फिल्म बनाओ. And he said yes I will come, and Devanand says then he will never come, he'll forget all about it, and then a month later again he will call. So and then
So he was
finally when
fighting
Devanand
this
meets him.
constant battle
So when Devanand finally
internal.
meets him, and it's after a long gap that he's meeting Guru Dutt, and he says that हमारी दुनिया अलग हो गई थी, and we used to meet rarely. And then finally when he meets him for the last time before Guru Dutt's death, he says कि मैंने उसको देखा, he was a different person. उसके सारे बाल उड़ गए थे, and he was looking pale, and he describes that okay, he must have been going through something. So all accounts points to that of course he was going through a lot of mental torture or turmoil,
And a very
which was
unhealthy lifestyle.
unhealthy lifestyle.
That Vimal
Definitely.
Mitra mentions that
And
Vimal Mitra mentions कि सो नहीं रहा है वो. He's smoking at 3 a.m. He's having like 17-18 cups of chai within a day. All those things will take a toll on your sleeping patterns.
हाँ,
Yeah.
और कुछ जो उनकी सिस्टर ने बताया that this something remained undiagnosed because of the family's
Okay.
carelessness. That's what she told me.
Yeah.
We always felt later when he was no more with us that okay, we could have saved him. Those kinds of like I had those conversations with her. That, no, there was definitely something undiagnosed because doctor told us that he's going through something severe. It could be depression and should take help of a psychiatrist, which actually came and which was never called again. So it came to a point where it had to happen. Yeah, which is sad.
But having said that, when we talk about all these Pyasa, Kagaz Ke Phool, and we talk about this era of melancholy and all those things, the man was also trying to make some funny comedy,
Yes.
rom-coms.
Yeah, and he did make.
They never got made. नहीं बाद में प्रोफेसर नहीं बनाया उन्होंने.
हाँ, बहुत सारी
एक दो और ऐसी फिल्म्स हैं जो नहीं बनाई. But they are all rom-coms. They are all light-hearted films.
His formula right from Har Par was that we'll make one serious film followed by a lighter film. That was his formula, which went wrong क्योंकि प्यासा serious के बाद उन्होंने कागज के फूल attempt कर ली.
Attempt कर दी, yeah.
Also, I think
कर
before all of us sign off, I think we should also talk about the fact that it is always said that कागज के फूल खत्म हो गई तो वो खत्म हो गया. It was not. It affected him, and he could never get over it. But at the same time, as a commercial filmmaker, his biggest blockbuster came right after Kagas Ke Phool.
Exactly.
Eight months. Within 8 months, that the team created Chaudhary Ka Chand, which I don't think of as a great film, except a few songs, which was greatly picturized by him, of course. But it became his biggest blockbuster.
Yeah.
Such a big blockbuster कि अगर उस साल मुगले आजम रिलीज ना हुई होती, it came in 1960.
number one film थी.
So it would have been the biggest hit of the year.
So think he got signed by the same guy, na, for his next film.
As an actor.
मुगले आजम के आगे Love and God.
As an actor.
Yasser sign कर रहे हैं.
Yeah.
That tells you everything about the stature that it achieved with Chaudhary Ka Chand.
Oh, that's the reason, and the impact, that personal impact also Alok ke saath bhi, that we did something inspired by him. I did my first piece of fiction inspired by Guru Dutt, and of course I wrote a book on him, and yeah, it is one of the books which keeps coming back. This year it's his centenary, and a lot of publications asked me to write on him, and you said let's talk about Raj Kapoor. I said no, it's Guru Dutt's centenary. We'll talk about Guru Dutt with a little Raj Kapoor thrown in. So ठीक है. I think this is out of all my subject, this is one subject which fascinates everyone. Like
everybody.
I meet people and they say अच्छा Guru Dutt के बारे में, and not that
across generations.
किसी को नहीं पता है, सबको पता है. बेसिक कहानी वही है. वो इसमें चुगताई के नॉवल में भी वही कहानी है, और डॉक्यूमेंट्री में भी नसरीन की वही है, मेरी किताब में भी वही है, विमल मित्र की कहानी भी घूम फिर के सब it is just one character. It is the same story from different perspectives, but still it is so fascinating. And I hope there is a biopic someday, and a good one.
Oh, hold that thought. Hold that thought, Yasser. Hold that thought. So now we're going to play a small rapid fire round. It's a very small rapid fire round. where you are going to answer as quickly as possible, and you can only name one entity, whether it's a name of an actor or a name of a film. I call this game shoot, where I'm going to ask you questions and you're going to shoot back answers. So both of you are going to get the same question. Either of you can go first. Let's just decide first so that you don't answer at the same time. So who wants to go first?
Yasser.
Okay, Yasser will go first, and then Alok, you can respond to the same question. So ready?
Alok is very intelligent. Sab dekh lo pehle and then I'll respond.
No. You are the subject matter expert.
Subject matter, absolutely.
कोई expert नहीं, I think यार. We're all storytellers.
मेरे लिए टीपने के लिए मतलब expert बैठा है, मैं क्यों आगे से? हाँ.
चलिए.
Okay, ready guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chalo.
First question. Most underrated Guru Dutt film?
Mr. and Mrs. 55 for me.
Okay.
Underrated कुछ भी नहीं है actually. Guru Dutt की सारी फिल्में properly rated इस time में. But yeah.
The R because
people discuss it.
I'll tell you, he can cut it, but Mr. and Mrs. 55 still had Madhubala, who was a major star. People talk about
very good point.
People talk about Mr. and Mrs. 55 a lot.
बाज भी खराब फिल्म नहीं है by the way.
यार बाज उससे बाज क्योंकि बाज
मतलब उस जमाने के हिसाब से वो झेली नहीं जाती है, अलग चीज है.
यार वो कितना एम्बिशन तो बड़ा ही था ना.
हाँ, exactly. The audacity of it. Yeah.
Pirates of the Caribbean बना रहे थे.
Yeah.
When you see बाज, you know कि ये आदमी अलीबाबा बना सकता है कभी जाके.
अलीबाबा बना.
पैसे रहेंगे तो अलीबाबा बना लेगा.
एम्बिशन उस वक्त भी. हाँ.
Most overrated Guru Dutt film, in your opinion?
कागज के फूल.
कागज के फूल. I would go with कागज के. But it is लोग पीछे पड़ जाएंगे मेरे, but yeah, I feel it.
But यही सच है. हाँ.
But ये सच है. हाँ. वो देखना, पूरी फिल्म देखना मुश्किल है अभी भी. Just take this line कि वो overrated इस कागज के फूल, क्योंकि पूरी फिल्म in totality देखना मुश्किल है. You can watch sequences and definitely the song sequence.
और उस फिल्म में ना टोनल जंप है, बहुत टोनल जंप है. It's not cohesive. Yeah.
Last film you watched that reminded you of Guru Dutt?
Jubilee actually, web series.
Okay. Jubilee definitely, but on a different. Jubilee, of course, was based, took a lot from Guru Dutt's character, and it was based on the same time zone. But strangely, it was Irfan and Tabu's namesake, which reminded me of Guru Dutt for some reason. I don't know for why. For what reason?
It's funny you said it, Yasser. That would be my answer too. Yeah.
But strangely, ये बड़ी कमाल की चीज है कि वो उसका कोई लेना देना नहीं है. It is different character, different story. कोई फिल्मी दुनिया से लेना देना. But I think the way he played it and the way he spoke in that film.
Yes. It's Irfan. Yeah.
तो मुझे लगता है कि हाँ वो कहीं ना कहीं और वो कनेक्टेड हुआ बिमल मित्रा के, कि यार मतलब क्या है, मतलब कभी कभी हर वक्त फायदा ही थोड़ी कमाना. ये क्या मतलब है? फायदा ही हुए जा रहा है, फायदा ही हुए. एंड ही सेज कि फायदा ही हुए जा रहा है, जहां से देखो पैसा आए जा रहा है, मैं क्या करूं? सो इट्स अ वेरी स्ट्रेंज एंड फिलोसॉफिकल थिंग्स टू से कि दोस थिंग्स डोंट रियली मैटर फॉर हिम. कि फिल्म हो गई है पूरी शूट, लेकिन मुझे पसंद नहीं आ रही, खत्म करो. एंड दिस हैपेंड मल्टीपल टाइम्स, नॉट जस्ट वंस. कई बार आधी फिल्म शूट करके खत्म हो गई. So I think philosophically, and it's a very strange thing. No one might agree with this, but it's a very long time ago when I watched the film on big screen, namesake, and it's for some reason it reminded me, कि अच्छा Guru Dutt for some reason. So I think I don't know.
One present day filmmaker whose body of work reminds you of Guru Dutt?
Sanjay Leela Bhansali. Initial performance.
बहुत controversial answer रहेगा, शीरीष कुंदर.
Interesting choice. Why do you say that?
Explain करिए, but why शीरीष कुंदर? जानेमन, because
जानेमन was beautifully shot.
Song
he understands music really well, and he was making the kind of films nobody was making around that time. Even Joker, for that matter, people don't like that film that much, but I feel it's the best piece of satire we have.
My favorite Farah Khan film is Tismar Khan, by the way.
Tismar Khan, obviously, yeah.
But I still like,
and also a misunderstood genius for me.
Okay. This is I never thought about because I like Janeman's song sequences a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, Janeman's song sequences anyway.
The songs itself, Gulzar Saab ke.
And also the audacity. Janeman
outside,
starts in
quite
a
outside.
space craft. जानेमन का
हाँ,
पहला सीन
हाँ,
स्पेसक्राफ्ट
हाँ,
में है, वो एंड
हाँ.
स्पेसक्राफ्ट में होती है.
He's
वो
definitely a
audacity.
person who
I don't
thinks
know.
out of the
It was
box,
pitched.
and he's
It
very
was.
unconventional.
I think
like
it was
that.
pitched. I think it was pitched, not pitched correctly. The genre of
Yeah.
Janeman.
Most of Shirish Kundar films were not pitched correctly. Otherwise, I strongly feel कभी जाके कोई 20-25 साल में लोग उसकी फिल्म देखेंगे and they'll be like, अरे यार ये सब हो रहा था और
ये
हमको पता नहीं.
ये हमें पता नहीं. अच्छा, ये हो सकता है. It's a very good
Because
answer. यार.
Joker I feel is an outstanding satirical piece. People just try to watch it on face value. Joker बहुत smart film है.
So you guys are casting for a Guru Dutt biopic. Who are you gonna cast as Guru Dutt? Who are you gonna cast as Devanand? And who are you gonna cast as Vaida Rahman? Be brave, guys. Be brave.
Like
गुरु दत्त तो रणवीर कपूर है यार, मतलब वो तो सोची ही बात नहीं है.
मेरे हिसाब से भी रणवीर कपूर है. It could have been in a long form setting. It could have been Irfan, जहाँ built up होने का time मिले. मतलब अगर आप मुझे 2 सीजन दे रहे हो या इवन 8 एपिसोड या 10 एपिसोड दे रहे हो, तो आई वुड से इरफान.
इरफान इज नॉट देयर ना यार.
हाँ, नहीं मतलब इट्स लाइक नेम सेक से मुझे ध्यान आया था उनका. बट अदरवाइज आई वुड गो विद रणवीर. यार रणवीर a star and a good looking star.
Yeah. यार देवानंद वाले लुक्स किसी में नहीं. Sorry. I'm very biased. देवानंद वाले looks
it doesn't have to be physical resemblance, right? I mean,
no, but in Jubilee, who's that guy who's playing?
Oh yeah.
He was good.
That guy was good. Yeah.
Very nice Devanand.
Siddhant.
That guy can play. Siddhant
he also has a similarity, like
yeah. थोड़ा सा sharp features है.
There is resemblance for sure.
Hairstyle दे दो तो देवानंद कर सकते हैं. वहीदा रहमान पूछ लिया लेकिन.
Yes, sir. How about you?
A young Tabu.
Yes.
How about present day actresses? I mean, Tabu is of course present day actress, but somebody who would fit with the age profile.
यार जो हिंदी अच्छी बोल पाए वो बड़ा. Otherwise like who like she comes.
So what are you saying, Yasser? No, none of the Sobo kids.
No, I'll explain what I'm saying. That someone, if you look at Wahida ji, even in her initial films, वो ऐसा नहीं किसी को खड़ा कर दिया और लाइन दे दी है. I think it comes with a baggage, है ना?
She got trained at all, not properly.
हाँ, she was trained as a dancer, and she has those mudras. चेहरे पे वो जो भाव थे वो सब थे. तो और वो इनिशियल बहुत मुश्किल रोल्स थे उनके जो उन्होंने किए. तो वो एज एन एक्ट्रेस शुरू से ही बहुत कमाल थी. और जबान में इसलिए कह रहा हूँ कि अगर बायोपिक डायरेक्ट है और आपको वहीदा रहमानी किसी को बनाना है, तो भैया पहली चीज तो जो बोल पाए अच्छा. तो ये है. आलोक सोच रहे हैं अभी.
नहीं यार, मेरे दिमाग में कोई नहीं आ रहा. मैं सोच
नहीं आ रहा ना. मैं इसीलिए मैंने कहा कि तबू आई.
मतलब देवानंद वाज सो डिफिकल्ट, बट वहीदा रहमान तो इवन वो डिफिकल्ट.
देवानंद के साथ तो एक और प्रॉब्लम है कि whoever will play him will try to mimic him.
वो जो प्रॉब्लम अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी की सारे बायोपिक्स में.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially with the person who has such strong body language and mannerisms,
such a strong
that kind of
it becomes mimicry.
precedence over the actual
वो प्रॉब्लम
person.
आएगी.
मतलब मेरा सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम संजू में वही था कि वो
मैं कहने ही वाला था.
कमिंग अक्रॉस एज डॉक्टर संकेत, जो मेरा बहुत अच्छा दोस्त है. संकेत जैसा वो संकेत और रणबीर में ना फर्क नहीं दिख रहा था मुझे.
ज्यादा फर्क नहीं है. रणबीर really worked hard, लेकिन वो it certain scenes it went.
But संकेत was training him ना.
अच्छा.
हाँ, तो रणबीर became more संकेत than more संजू.
I think the reason for that is because Ranbir also has a physical resemblance, right? I mean, he also had that physical resemblance.
मुझे ये भी फील होता है कि even in Animal and all, he has that shade of संजू वाले से निकला.
संजय, yeah. He has. In fact, वो जो है ना, सुनाई दे रहा है मैं बहरा नहीं हूँ मैं, वो तो
totally.
हाँ.
If you could write a note to Guru Dutt, just saying something, a short note, what would your note be about?
You did well, sir. You did very well.
Okay.
सेम यार, और क्या बोलोगे? मतलब
हाँ
किसी जीनियस को कुछ बोला नहीं जाता
हाँ
भाई।
कि क्या ही बोले, हम तो
Thank
इंस्पायर ही
you.
हो रहे हैं यार,
You
हम
can
तो
say thank you.
हाँ
मतलब
हाँ,
हाँ
you
थैंक
just
यू
say
for the
thank
एंड
you.
films.
थैंक यू डिड
Thank you
वेरी
for the
वेल एंड
films.
फॉर इंस्पायरिंग अस यार, मतलब गेटिंग इंस्पायर्ड, और क्या, किताबें लिख रहे हैं उन पे और उनसे इंस्पायर्ड होके हम लोग काम कर रहे हैं, तो ठीक है एंड
Exactly.
जेन्युइनली कर रहे हैं। हाँ, नो वन आस्क्ड अस टू डू दैट।
Well, thank you guys. Thank you both.
बहुत
थैंक यू
मजेदार
हिमांशु,
Great.
कैचअप हो गया ये।
मजेदार रहा, मजेदार कैचअप हो गया और बात हो गई सबसे, नहीं तो ट्विटर के थ्रू ही था। हिमांशु से भी पहली बार देख लिया मैंने हिमांशु को,
Yes,
हाँ।
same here.
एंड इट्स बीन वंडरफुल यार हिमांशु। आई होप सब बकवास तो काट ही दोगे आप, एंड ट्रस्टिंग यू। और
लेकिन ये
इस
इतने
No,
डायरेक्शंस में भागा है कॉन्वर्सेशन।
हाँ हाँ,
नाउ आई एम
बिकॉज
थिंकिंग कि ये
वो
क्या क्या
शुरू में
काट
मैंने
जाएगा।
बोल दिया था ना
But
कि
it's
मैं
going to
बता
be
देता
tricky
हूँ,
for me
मैंने कहा
because
कोई
you
फायदा
guys,
नहीं, अब
you
लेट हो
guys
गया,
really put out some
पहले
nice gold
बताते तो
nuggets
हम
out
उसी
there.
हिसाब से तैयारी करते।
So thank you guys. This was wonderful.
Thank you, Himanshu. Thank you for having us on your show, and it has been such a lively conversation with you and Alok. Thank you, Alok, for बहुत ही मजा आया।
थैंक्स यासर भाई, थैंक्स हिमांशु, थैंक्स फॉर हैविंग अस, इट वाज अ प्लेजर।
Thank you so much, guys.
बहुत मजा आया।
If you liked the episode, do consider supporting the show. Your support will help me continue creating content like this. You can find the link for supporting the show in the show notes and on the pod website. Also, do share this episode on Twitter, Insta, or Facebook. And do subscribe, rate, and review the pod wherever you listen to your pods. You can follow me on Twitter and Insta at loveofcinemasf8. Feel free to reach out there or by email with your comments, feedback, and suggestions. You can find my email in the show notes. That's the episode. This is Himanshu signing off. And as always, thank you for listening to the Love of Cinema podcast.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.